Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later in the program, we're going to be talking about the auto bailout. It's been a success. The president says so. We'll hear the other side of the story from Yale King. But first, you know her, you love her. You hear on KFKA. Amy Oliver, thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me here. I almost said thanks for being with me too.
Well, we could talk about that later if you like.
I think my husband would like it.
Yeah, there's a bar. I want to talk to you first about some transparency stuff and then some energy stuff, so we're going to have to jump right into it.
Okay.
You at the Independence Institute do a few different research projects for us, including transparency. You did an interesting little project where you simply said, I want to know what people in higher education make. And so you put out the FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, and they came running back with all the answers right away. I'm just curious, how easy is it to get public information to make it public?
Well, first of all, it's a Colorado Open Records Act request, CORA. FOIA is federal, just for clarification.
Yeah, I'm sure they care about that.
They do.
Did you get that?
Because they might want to do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was interesting about what I did was not so much asking the information. By the way, this was all a matter of public information. I didn't ask for anything that was private. I didn't, wasn't looking for personal calendars or anything like that. This was all public information. I wanted total compensation above $100,000, $100,000 or above. And then I asked for some overtime information. And really what I wanted to see was what institutions of higher education, and I did only four-year institutions, what kind of attitude they had towards transparency. And I'm here to say that Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction rolled out the red carpet. They couldn't have been more accommodating, making sure I had what I wanted. Did I get what I needed? Did I have any other questions? They even invited me to come take a tour of the campus. So
nice.
They were fabulous. It wasn't real specific. I mean, it was kind of vague because I really did want to see how they would respond.
Right. And the other schools?
Well, Metro State has quite a bit online. I will say they set the gold standard for transparency and compensation. They have name, position, salary, benefits, and increase all online. And they've been doing that for about the last 4 years. It's in a PDF. It's right there on their website. So they really set the gold standard for transparency. When they got the core, they said, if there's anything else we can provide for you.
All right, let's get to the punchline though.
Okay.
My alma mater, good old CU, they were there to let you know.
Yeah, I gave them the mediocre. Let me go. School of Mines was arrogant and told me just to go to the library and then wanted to charge me $700. CSU.
School of Mines, that blows my mind because School of Mines is a great
They're
technical
a great school.
But they wanted to charge you $700.
They were arrogant.
Nice.
And Colorado State University requires that you send it only by mail. I sent it certified mail, and then they sent me a request or a letter back saying, referred me to page 4 of their policy. I mean, they were just trying to make it difficult. CU eventually gave me the information that I was looking for, but it wasn't easy. It was challenging. The bottom line being, some of these schools were great about it. Some of the schools were not.
What surprises me is that they all bubble up to the same entity. These are creations of the state, whether it's a community college or any of our universities, and they have all these different policies. It should be open. Everything you asked for was
a matter of
public record.
Yeah, and that's why B.J. Nickel, State Representative B.J. Nickel, is running a bill, Higher Ed Transparency, it's House Bill 1252, to force not just compensation and benefits, but also productivity levels to be made available online for people to see, for parents and students to see.
This led to a little bit of a huff because up in Boulder, the Boulder Daily Camera was doing the exact same thing independently of what you were doing, and it seemed like CU got some very nice raises, and then the regents and the president, they're a good guy, Bruce Benson, who's doing a terrific job, but they got a lot of heat for bumping up salaries.
And they still are.
DeStefano got a bump of $50,000 nearly in 1 year.
Yeah, that's enough to send 2 kids, in-state residents, to school on Boulder's campus. I think when I did this, I have a total compensation. The 2011-2012 total compensation is online at transparency.i2i.org. You can look it up right there of what all of those salaries, the salary increases were with the 9.3% pay or tuition hike. When I looked at administration, if I remember this correctly, 22 people got $270,000 worth of raises.
And it's amazing because now they're talking about tuition, massive tuition increases.
15.7%. They said they backed off of that since, but I think Regent Sue Sharkey is correct when she says public outcry over that, and really what Brittany Annis did at the Boulder Daily Camera to expose that. I think that is why that has been pulled back, that it will be scaled back. I think 15.7% is off the table.
But can we be honest that a lot of this is compensation to bump people's salaries
Yes.
up before they retire so that their retirement
spike.
government benefits bump up with it?
Yes, for some people that is exactly what it is. For Phil
So-
DeStefano, it was a $49,000 raise. He gets a para spike, and then on top
And
of
para
that,
spike, para is our retirement association, so it looks like he's getting a lot more money. He retires, and then he gets a lot more money for the rest of his life.
But there's one other up there right now. I think it's Rick Pareca, who was the CFO, retired, and then they rehired him at 140 days. So he's working part-time, and with his para benefits, plus the salary that the University of Colorado is paying him, he is making, for 140 days, he's making almost $500,000. I know, I'm in the wrong business, I know.
So in other words, you retire, you're on benefits, then you go back to work while you're getting retirement benefits,
Right.
you make $500,000.
And the problem is,
in
we're
140
balancing,
days?
those pay raises are being borne on the backs of students. I mean, it's immoral to ask students to take out a loan to pay those kinds of salaries. And I think that's really where the whole transparency in higher education, because we're.
But they do this stick, and I've seen it in city government, I've seen it at RTD, I've seen it in county government, where they do comparables. Because their government jobs are hard to compare to the private sector, so they compare to their peers in other places. And it's amazing, when you watch a city manager get a raise, what they do is they pick the cities that show, oh, you know, this guy's being underpaid. And then that's getting used by the next guy who shows he's underpaid.
Look, I'm underpaid.
And it works.
Pretty soon you have Bell, California, where you had guys making, $750,000 in a community of 30,000 people.
And this is the age of austerity. Remember, all right, let's switch gears because
Okay.
we're going to run out of time. Another thing that you've kept an eye on as one of our energy experts is the carbon tax. Now, I was amazed when you came to me and talked to me about Colorado's carbon tax, to which I said, there's no carbon tax. There's no carbon. We've never passed a carbon tax. There's no federal legislation on carbon tax. And I looked at my utility bill, my great Excel bill. There's no carbon tax.
You didn't see the line item that said carbon tax?
No.
Well, then you could do Excel's testimony right for them, because they'll say that exact same thing in testimony. They'll say, there is no line item on your bill that says carbon tax, but trust me, you are paying for it. In 2008, Colorado passed a bill, House Bill 1164, which enabled the language of a carbon tax. It allowed the public utilities to consider carbon as an adder on resource acquisition, in particular for fossil fuels. So what does it do? It makes coal more expensive. Now, when the modeling dictates the spending, and the spending dictates the rates.
Let me kick this back to you. Let me see if I've got this right. So we now have a law that allows Excel to charge me more for a carbon tax because they make a certain amount of money off, they use coal to make
Right.
electricity. And then so my rate goes up, but
Right.
it's not a line item on
Right.
the bill. But then they take that carbon tax that they pay because it's a tax, and they give it to the government as a form of a tax. What does the government do with it?
Right. Well, and this was all under the assumption that it would pass at the federal level. Okay, so it never passed. They've got Democrats in control of the House and the Senate and Barack Obama, and they couldn't get a carbon tax or cap and trade passed. So now we don't have one. So you think, well, yeah, they're writing a check. They're writing a check.
They're collecting carbon taxes. Excel is collecting carbon taxes
They'll
and
call it
paying
an adder.
An adder. They're getting this carbon tax, and they're keeping it.
Right. And Colorado has been wildly profitable for Xcel Energy, and I don't really blame them. They're just exploiting the system. I mean,
Corporate whores doing what they do.
Right. I mean, I don't blame them. I do blame lawmakers and the Public Utilities Commission, the commissioners that allow this to happen, because they don't have to do it. And so now Spencer Swam has introduced legislation to repeal that, to say unless there is a carbon tax at the federal level, we cannot consider a carbon tax when planning, resource planning. You can't do that unless there is actually one at the federal level. Now, our whole point being, listen, if the state of Colorado wants to tax Coloradans for global warming, then it should be a dialogue that they have.
And it should be a line
Right.
item on my bill so
Right.
I can see it.
Right.
So that I can go, oh, I'm paying this much more for a
Right.
pollution tax or a carbon tax or an O2 tax or whatever, however they want to put it. Let me ask you, since this passed through the House,
It is.
that amazed me because this went through last year as well, and it didn't have that same success
No.
in the Republican-controlled House. Why?
No, well, it didn't have the support of Republicans in the House, even though many of the Republicans voted against the initial legislation enabling a carbon tax. In 2011 legislative session, it was voted down because Xcel Energy wants that carbon tax.
So in the Republican-controlled anti-tax legislature, Excel was able to get that bill killed
Right,
to
in committee.
keep the tax going.
Right, it was killed, but not this year.
Not this year.
So this year, and
A little bit more public attention got it passed.
I think so. And Spencer Swam, Representative Spencer Swam, not taking no for an answer.
You know, I wish that you know they've got that thing wrapped around the Gold Dome now that they're fixing it up. It's got a
Yeah,
tarp around it,
you
and they
know-
got a symbol. Why don't they just have the Excel symbol on top of that, and it could be the Excel Capitol at Mile High? I think it would work well.
I just think that probably pay for the restoration.
Yeah.
Do you know one of the other things, part of that quote restoration is a geothermal well. There's actually a geothermal well that is being dug right there around the Capitol.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm so glad
I
we're
gotta
doing that.
Yeah. It's something that a couple of people had told me about. I finally went and sniffed it out a little bit, and sure enough. But I have been told by somebody on the JBC that it really won't pay for itself in a generation.
All right, speculation. Will this
Okay.
carbon tax repeal make it through the democratically controlled Senate?
If they,
Or are they also under Excel's leash and allowing them to charge a tax that doesn't go through to any government?
let's be honest on another level too. There are some eco-left environmental groups that don't want this to be repealed either. So they will be out.
They want to make coal more expensive.
Right, they're anti-fossil fuel, so they don't want you to be able to utilize coal. They do want it to be more expensive. So you're going to have that power come down in the Senate. But I do think that there are some in the Senate who will look at what ratepayers are paying and how much energy bills have gone up. And I think there's a possibility, I'm not going to say yes, but there's a possibility that you could have some in the Senate that look at this and say, hey, listen, Lois Talktrop is one who has looked at ratepayers first. She has considered ratepayers before special interest groups. So there are people like that are
See,
championing.
what I love is that there's this evil cabal between corporate America and Excel and the enviros who just want to stall production and electricity, and they can work together. Everybody gets what they want. Amy, thank you so much. You want more information? Where do you go?
Energy.i2i.org, transparency.i2i.org, or of course, independenceinstitute.org.
Find out what's going on in the auto industry. Stay tuned.